The queue will now initiate.
Hi guys, it's Jenny. I am so glad you are joining me for episode number 115, where my guest is serial entrepreneur Michael Hall of Digital Grass and Medium 4. Michael and I get into a lot. Mental blocks, diversity, finding your target audience, and the concept of dying empty. He really gave me such good stuff to work with, but I decided to take two things to the learning curve at the end. One, getting around that mental roadblock that naturally happens when you are super excited about a great idea, but then realize you're not the first to market. Crappers. And two, what Michael says in this conversation about dying empty hit me so hard, I just had to talk more about that too. So there's tons to digest, so I'll keep my own updates on this intro super quick. I recorded the first episode of the Hustle All Day podcast with Jules. You've heard me mention it before, so we recorded that first episode this week. That was really awesome. Our guest was a guy named James Oliver Jr., and he has written a freaking awesome book called The More You Hustle, the Luckier You Get, and I'm actually going to do a little bit of a feature with him, so he's going to be my special guest on the 3rd anniversary of this podcast, coming up in a few months, and leading up to that, I'll share some extra bits and stuff from his book, so it's going to be a lot of fun. I had the ultimate pleasure of attending the South Florida premiere of a film I've mentioned before called The Messengers, which is a documentary all about podcasts. It's going to be hitting iTunes pretty soon, so look for it. But it was awesome because I got to see Glenn, who you've heard about before. I got to see my friends from Planted in Miami, which is another great podcast, Gamer Tag Radio, which is also a great podcast, the folks from Podfest. So just to see them was really awesome. And Glenn the Geek, he made it official. It's official, guys. He's been watching what I've been doing and how I've been keeping my release schedule promised to him, and he is officially on board. Drum roll. As my mentor. Whoopee! So thank you to Glenn. After the Messengers, we all went to an amazing restaurant, which I can't think of the name right now. It's a brand new restaurant, but it was so good. When I think about it, I'll let you know. In fact, the owner of the restaurant will be a future guest, so you'll find out about it eventually. But anyways, Glenn and I talked quite a bit and got to know each other better. But in digesting that first conversation with him over the following couple of days, man, it really jazzed me up. I grew an extra pair of cojones and realized I am seriously in the best position for success at this that anyone could ask for. So it's now up to me to work hard to reach out and just grab this opportunity and make it a success. So I'm gonna trust fall, I'm gonna get out of my own way, and it's gonna be great. And I can't believe I'm doing this so publicly. Eek! That's what I do, right? Also this week I had my first photo shoot ever, so shout out to Hive Hub Media for that. It was a lot of fun, and Gil, you were an amazing photographer, so that was really, really great. Also, a quick update on the meetups. I know I've mentioned before that I will eventually be helping with Podcast South Florida. Now, I've just spoken with the co-organizer of that, Jared Easley. So just a quick update, guys. That's on hold for another couple of months. He'd like to put that on pause so he can focus on podcast movement. And speaking of podcast movement, I just got a really cool offer from them, and I can't really talk about it because it's still pending, but I'm sure I'll be able to tell you all about it soon, so it's really exciting. And I spent this morning at the Florida Women's Business Center event with my buddy Teresa, who you've heard before, episode 110, and that was a lot of fun. So now it's all about networking. It's about learning ins and outs of doing business and everything like that. So take opportunities. She just emailed me a couple of days ago and said, hey, this is happening. Do you want to go? I said, yes, please. And I went. Take the bull by the horns, guys, and when an opportunity like that comes, just go, because I learned a lot this morning. It was really great. And I also emailed with Libsyn a bunch this morning about building out my network. So kudos to Libsyn for being great with their customer service. Rob and Crystal, you guys are awesome. All right, and with all that said, sit back and relax and enjoy this, the 115th episode of the Curve the Cube podcast with Mr. Michael Hall. Enjoy. Hi, okay, so listeners, I am excited to bring you the one, the only, the man, myth, and legend, Michael Hall.
It's a lot of pressure for me.
No pressure. He's co-founder of Grassroots Innovation and Technology. Did I get that right?
That's the full name.
Thank goodness, because I was like, I know it's Digital Grass, and then it's even shorter to Digigrass.
That was for the website, so.
Yeah. So tell us about the company and what you do, because I know you guys really focus on creating diversity opportunities for anybody and everybody. So what do you guys really focus on? Diversity inclusion, I think was the word I saw. Yeah.
Diversity inclusion, but it became more of inclusion because in some areas, especially in South Florida, in some theories, diversity isn't your problem. We have the diversity. We're probably one of the more diverse cultures in the United States of America, but just very much a siloed element. So our focus was the inclusion part, from ageism, sexism, so you're talking about gender bias, you're talking about age bias, classism, just also access to knowledge. So our biggest thing was to become a liaison to a lot of those people to bridge those gaps, and while doing so, helping them develop their businesses. So that could be through consulting, design work, helping them with some of the technical aspects, just in business development itself, being able to make sure they're building a product that can actually generate revenue. Some people have good ideas, but they don't know how to turn good ideas into money.
Right. That is so true. Absolutely. So what was your impetus for starting the company, though? Because it's one thing to have an idea and a passion behind it, but it's another thing to actually put action behind it. What made you actually say, I want to do this and actually do it?
I mean, it was my co-founders. It was the other people surrounding me that believed in the vision. I mean, we were showing up at these events, and we would see the same 7 or 8 people.
Yeah.
And this was about 4 years ago. So what you see now is nothing what it was like when Lab Miami was like the only spot to go to for events.
Right.
That was around the time Brian Burkeen had just showed up in the town, starting off Kairos. And I mean...
What was that name? Brian
Burkeen.
Okay.
Brian is a multi-million-dollar company now, but when he first came here, it was him and his friend. He had just moved out here from California. Anne-Marie, Sophia Nelson, LaToya Stirrup, my business partner, Dante Filiot, we used to be like the only people of color.
Right.
Or should I say black people? Let me not say that, because you have a lot of Hispanic people down there, which Hispanics in South Florida identifying themselves as minorities is a whole nother conversation. Because I think people realize life is different once you get north of Orlando.
Right. You have to go, what is the quote? You have to go north to go south?
Yeah. So, and I grew up in Panama City, Florida, Redneck Riviera. So
Redneck Riviera.
A lot of the stuff that people get away with down here, you won't be able to pull that. Once you get to Gainesville, Ocala, it's a whole different world. So we just started seeing it, and we was like, well, how do we fix it? So the goal was to use our professional resources and our professional talent to help these companies build. So our primary company is a full-service marketing agency. So we do brand development, website development, content development, videography, photography. And a lot of companies, they don't have that image to look like they're worth $1 million or $1 billion.
Right.
We had a public relations company, social media strategist. So we were like, okay, we'll offer all of our services, pretty much everything but coding, to help build businesses. And at the time, organizations weren't really fond of funding accelerators. So we were like, fine, if it's not going to be an accelerator, because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to have, I wouldn't say unlimited funds, but we wanted to be able to give companies pretty much $25,000 vouchers where they would get services with us for a discounted rate.
Of course, they start mowing the lawn. I don't know if my listeners can hear that or not, but that's what that is.
I don't know, but
there's not something else going on in the background over here.
It's really just horrible. And they do it all day.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, though, because there are a lot of... I was actually just talking with this, with my last guest about this. How oftentimes it can be really helpful when you're building your own thing to create it in such a way that it naturally helps other people as well. And it sounds like, I mean, just looking at the website and looking into it, you guys put your money where your mouth is. You have a lot of programs and events that you seem to really want to not just talk the talk, but you seem to walk the walk. Like you have your office hours program, like talk, and it's not, what do you think, guys? Tell us about your office hours program.
Office hours is a time where, I mean, we have to still make money.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where...
So rude.
It got to a point where we were getting calls Monday through Sunday. Everybody wants to pick your brain. Everybody wants to talk to you. And I mean, I was that guy, but I've always strategically done it as much as I could. You have to be mindful of other people's time. And so what happened was we just got to a point where sat down with the team and it's like, we can't have these phone calls coming 7 days a week. Right. Can't really have them coming more than once or twice a month. Right. So I got everybody to agree, how about this? We'll just do it on a Thursday, second Thursdays, every second Thursday pretty much. So 12 times a year, anybody can come and sit down with us and get free consulting services. So you have somebody that's a high-end executive with IBM that's there. You have different professionals that come on our behalf just to offer their services. So you're looking at anywhere from any given moment 2 to 6 professionals. And if they were charging their true rate, $125 to $500 an hour, and you're getting that service for free. And it's not just one of us. It's like 4 or 5 of us at the table. Wow. So you can almost call it like a mini accelerator. Yeah. It's nowhere close to that, but it's just really normally an intense whiteboard session where it's a candid response, and some people leave there with their feelings hurt because, you know, you do have a good idea, and we always tell people, we're not right. It's just, these are the things we've seen. This is from years of experience. Prove us wrong, but if you come to ask for advice, this is what it would look like from any other marketing company. Right. Otherwise, some people will sell you just to take your money.
And you can get your feelings hurt, or you can look at it as, at least my bottom line in the future is not going to be hurt if I actually hear this now.
Well, biggest thing, also you didn't pay for it. Right. So you're getting hundreds of dollars if you stay there for a full hour. Right. You're getting thousands of dollars worth of advice. Right. I mean, we have a lawyer that sits in on the meetings that can give you information about contracts. So you have a lot of resources that are there for free. But our thing is also, we only extend ourselves to a certain extent. Right. It's about other people showing up. Right.
So as far as you're concerned now, you've managed to translate a bit of a problem, an issue, into something that sounds like it'd actually be really powerful, not only for the community and your target market of people who could be your own clients, but just you in general and the people around you in general. Like you can create this natural networking kind of situation. Yeah.
And that's where Tech Beats and Bites came in. So it was like, okay, now let's remove some of the tension and put it into even more relaxed atmosphere. So most people thought it was just going to be a party with just tech people and people from the music industry. And the first hour and a half to 2 hours, it is a party. It's just a network and chill event. There's 90s R&B, 90s hip-hop, old school music. And then you transition into a talk show. Do 30 to 45 minutes of a talk show with different guests, local guests. Rico Love was our first guest. We're working on trying to get Plies to come. We're working on different artists. Damon John got an outreach today. We reached out to him. But we realized getting people the content is really the problem. There's a lot of people that just don't know where to start. Right. And there's a lot of people that just don't know the contacts. And unfortunately, Miami is still seen, South Florida is still seen as a lazy area. You just don't have the same grind. And I always tell people, you know, it's the difference between a co-work space and a coffee shop in Miami versus going somewhere like New York, Detroit. It's just a different vibe. And I mean, but there's some people down here that, hands down, if you put them up with anybody else, they're not going to outwork them. But if you don't create the culture for it, you know, I expect this to even be a slow movement because some things in South Florida I think people ask for and complain about. Right. But when they get it, they still don't support it. So, but sometimes you just, you know, you don't wait for somebody to knock at the door. You just build your own damn door. So just make it work.
High five me for that one. Come on. All right. So I know, like, especially as you were talking about before, ageism, sexism, there are all these isms, right, that are basically can be systemic roadblocks for people of a variety of backgrounds. But what, as you talk to people, especially young innovators, they have an idea, maybe they're just getting ready to get started, what have been the mental blocks that you've seen have been kind of common between people that keep them from actually press and go?
Normally it's not being first to market. People will see somebody else steal their idea. What they feel is stealing their idea. And so they get discouraged. I would say for more of your minorities, lack of funding. Just feeling that bootstrapping is not going to cut it. Even though most companies had to bootstrap, I mean, if you go 4 or 5 generations back, almost every person of color is going to be related, more so rooted back to slavery. So when you have a colleague that might have a family that comes from, an estate fund, trust funds,
it trickles down.
And they're, they're like, oh yeah, my seed round was $250,000, and that was all friends and family. And you talking to the dude whose parents, even if they wanted to, probably couldn't give them $500, let alone $250,000.
And then it goes back to what you're saying, like people just don't even know the context, because there's another thing that passes down from generation to generation. It's a general knowledge of how things work, right? And
but even when I went, I mean, you got to think I'm 37.
Oh, me too. High five.
So even being 37, my parents didn't teach entrepreneurship. They wanted me to go to college, become an engineer, get a solid job with the Department of Defense.
Did they ever use the word practical?
Nah.
Because my parents did a lot.
It wasn't that bad now. That was more so my father. That's what he pushed. Because that was his life. And his thing was he just wanted me to have as good as a life as he was having.
Of course. It's every parent's dream,
My mom was more so the one that pushed the creative side. So you got to think, I'm an artist. I'm the kid that if I wasn't outside playing, I was in the house drawing.
Really?
If it was too late to watch TV, I was with my He-Man making a whole movie and scripting stuff out. So I was constantly creating no matter what. But by the time I was 9, I had my first company. I was selling candy at school. I wasn't even selling candy. I was selling paper strips with cinnamon and sugar on them.
Better be cinnamon and sugar.
Then after that, by the time I was 13, I had a lawnmowing service where I actually had employees working for me.
Oh my gosh.
By the time I was 14, I was working a job under the table for Mr. Willie, working at a place called Golden Griddle out on Panama City Beach.
All right, pause. So does anybody else feel as unaccomplished as I do and lazy? Because I thought I was baller by having my first job at 12. Goodness gracious.
So that was 14.
Make room for you.
15, I was working at the hotels and still working at Golden Griddle. By the time I was 16, 15, also in Florida at the time, you could work at Wendy's when you were 15. That was one of the few places you could work at before you had a driver's license.
I worked at a camp at 15, so very few.
Then 16 and all that, started getting into other jobs. I did McDonald's. I worked at Coca-Cola doing distribution, so I used to have to stack the shelves at different Walmarts and locations because of how much people went through soda during the summertime on the beach. So oddly enough, all my jobs transpired to different elements that helped me in life now.
Of course. Do you think any of that's lacking? Do you think people ever don't appreciate the trials and tribulations that can grow your character through hard work in early years?
I think the lack of co-op in high school is probably killing our kids more than anything. And I guess to kind of go back to more of your original question, what even led me down my path, what I'm doing in technology, my father did the same thing in engineering. And he built a program that was recognized by the Pentagon. And he was one of the main components of recruiting engineers from Tuskegee University to work with the Department of Defense. And that's why I've always said to Maxine that works with Facebook, and I am calling names because I want people to put this out there, to the people at Google, to the people at Twitter, a lot of these people, the reason why you have to walk away, I would say why I almost walked away from diversity inclusion in the way that I did, and why I started focusing on inclusion and growth, is because when you have private investors and they're not getting government money, you internally can't change their procedures. They legally can do whatever they want to. They can build their own company culture. So I think the difference between, like, if it was like an East Coast versus West Coast, if you look at the East Coast, a lot of people on the East Coast are fighting for their own incubators and accelerators. They're fighting for their own funding to build their own companies. On the West Coast, a lot of people are fighting for the opportunities to have jobs to go work with these. Why would you want to fight to go work somewhere where they don't want you in the first place?
Right.
You know, why not just build your own thing and educate the community to stop using those platforms and to invest to build better platforms if you're that angry about it. But, you know, you're not going to make Uber change their hiring environment. Now, their harassment suits and everything else, for one, they should be sued. Anything that's going wrong, you just don't disrespect women. But you can't force somebody to hire black. That's a privately owned company. You're not going to do it. And if they wanted to fix those problems, Facebook would have already established a curriculum and a recruitment camp at 20 of the 106 HBCUs in the nation.
Let me guess, have they done any?
Facebook, no. Facebook's outlook is to do college tours. That's what they've done. Howard finally Google finally did the thing with Howard West, but they're taking the kids from D.C. And taking them out to Palo Alto. Howard could have invested into Aaron Saunders just opening up an incubator over there, inclusive incubator, innovation inclusive incubator in 3DC. They could have put, you know, $5 million into him, which would have been a drop to the bucket, and had their people fly there and understand that culture. So if you had institutions, and let's just make them one or the other, institutions of education, which are universities and college, Division I schools, versus institutions of innovation and tech, which are these large billion-dollar unicorn companies, if they recruited the same way D1 schools recruit for athletes, how diverse would the culture really be?
It would be ridiculous. Come on. Yeah.
All right?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
So when you start looking at that, so if you took that same approach and they're like, okay, you know what? For 1 year, we're going to recruit black intelligence, women intelligence, minority intelligence, the same way we recruit athletes. They start training those
Recruit their minds, not just their bodies.
And people are like, oh, well, how do you know they're going to? Well, it's not if they would be as smart. It's not if they would be as talented. But what you would start to notice is they will have to change their approach because they have money that they put into Pop Warner leagues. They pay high school coaches at a higher rate to build the kind of players they want. They're in some of the worst neighborhoods, but they make sure those kids have the best uniforms, the best shoes, you know, money coming in from Nike. So what if you did the same thing with young black kids trying to learn? You made sure their computers were just as good as their shoes. You made sure that their coaches were getting paid. I mean, the teachers were getting paid just as much as those coaches. If you put the same NCAA mentality into intelligence that you put into sports.
And what's interesting is I'm picturing the recruiter who comes into the hood for the football player, right? Imagine the boost of confidence, like the football player probably already has it, but imagine the boost of confidence that same kid, if they were going for engineering, would have, knowing someone came into my neighborhood for me.
Hey, I saw how you did on that standardized test, and I saw how you solved that equation. Your teacher sent it over to me. We're going to do everything we can to make sure you get to the University of Georgia. We're going to make sure we do everything we can to get you to Stanford, University of Michigan.
So you've mentioned a couple of terms, incubators and accelerators, and I would ask you to flesh those out a little bit, so for anybody who's unfamiliar with those are, because I want people to, you know, if they're not sure what the opportunities are out there, that maybe this is another thing that they can look up and see what those opportunities are that may be around the corner.
Yeah, so incubator will house a company normally for about a year to build them out. Accelerators are normally more targeted and focused programs, anywhere from some are short, like Angela Benton, she does one that I think is about 6 weeks. Some of them can last up to 18 weeks. But an incubator has a little bit more of to me, a caring system. An accelerator is a focused incubator, is the way I like to see it.
Okay, I got
so they don't really have that many of them down here. So they have some for like women in tech, has a great one going on. RFL which is Rebecca Fisherman Lipsey. She's building one right now. So there's a couple down here, but it's just about, you know, who you know.
Remember when, so we met at Teresa Chambers' event, Business of Style, was it like 2 months ago, something like that? I thought so much of what you were saying was interesting. all of what you were saying was interesting. I just thought some of it was especially interesting.
Only some of it.
I didn't
is
mean that to say that the way that I said it. I apologize. What I mean is, so I loved how you were talking about how you parse out. I think you're speaking specifically to artists because that's Teresa's vantage point. But generally, you're talking about how you parse out data to help artists figure out where their target audiences are or something like that. Can you explain what that is? And I come from an analytics background, so this really keyed into me. And how do you help people find the audiences that are actually wanting their products and services?
Well, it's a platform that we're still building. It's called Curator Analytics. It was on the back end of this platform we have called Curator, which was an image recognition platform for art. So it's just components of what a data scientist would do. I can't really say it here because it's not that it's trade secret, but it would give it away. But just in theory, imagine in the music industry, because there's a company called Autogent that's ran by John Gazier, who is one of my business partners as I'm getting ready to actually become a part of his venture firm to make investments. Autogent can calculate songs by beats per minute to tell you which songs will trend better in different zip codes in different countries.
Are you
But it's broken down to a science, right? But that stuff has already been done. Wow. That's why when you listen to the radio, and if you ever notice the radio sounds continuous, as if it's just one long track, that's because scientifically they know that down to beats per minute what people prefer to listen to on the radio. So instead of beats per minute, make that mediums, colors, and objects within paintings. We do the same things with paintings as what a data scientist would do for music to tell which demographic responds better to what music.
Interesting. So you might know that in Michigan they like paintings of fruit bowls, but in New York they like paintings of skylines. I'm totally simplifying this and making it
I mean, generally but it could be even better. You could be in New York and you could say in Brooklyn they have more eccentric art that focuses on the colors of greens with the medium being oil. Versus in Manhattan, it could be more pastel colors based off of abstract art. With the focus being more, maybe acrylic based or anything like that. So it's multiple layers.
That's crazy because you're basically translating like desire and art appreciation into.
Right. So our goal is to make it scientific curation.
Yeah.
So with the scientific curation, if I can prove the numbers and also prove by making more sales, which we'll have a curator group, which will start selling art. We start collecting art in different places in the country. I want to disrupt Sotheby's and Christie's.
There you go.
Because
unapologetically,
art is an unregulated market that is controlled by rich people.
Yeah.
Which at most time hurts the artist because by the time the artist's art is collected in full, they go into a reevaluation of the art. The prices go up, but the artist never sees any benefit of that.
Right.
So my thing is take it out of the hands of two big houses. It's no different than the two people that own all the communications in the prison industry, and then you have somebody like Fred Hutchinson that comes on. And I just said his name wrong, but my homeboy Fred that runs Pigeonly, and he becomes the third party, the third person in a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
So my thing is, sometimes when you tap into something, you don't have to own the whole thing, but if you disrupt something enough and take your piece, you can live a happy life.
Right. Kind of like what you were saying before about someone who has the mental block because they see someone else going to market before them. Well, maybe you can just disrupt something and tweak it and
that's all you have to do. As they said, we own this house. Protect this house. Under Armour. The product itself wasn't doing that great.
Right.
But that campaign gave Under Armour, it gave them a ground.
Absolutely.
In the industry.
Oh my gosh, I was just reading about Michelin tires and how was it the late 80s or early 90s is when they transitioned their marketing so that instead of just talking about how great their tire tread is, which who cares about that, what they actually did was they showed babies in the commercial.
Right.
And I think they actually had the baby in the tires, right?
Safety,
and it said, it said, we care about what's riding on your tires or something like that, and it was just brilliant because it cut to, instead of talking about tire tread. You're cutting to an emotional response from people.
And that's how always, a lot of people, I tell people, I'm like, if you go into a $1 billion industry, instead of worrying about being everything, what if you capture 1%?
Yeah.
Learn math.
Yeah.
You know, learn the value of what 1% of $1 billion is. And
if anyone who wants to donate 1% of $1 billion to the United Negro Podcasting Fund, please, by all means.
You're not going to turn it down. So
no.
That's what we tell people sometimes. And, you know, and that's why I think, you know, I do believe some people bring me to speak because they know a part of me is going to be crass. Because the part where I make my most money in my career has always been design and ideation. You're not going to get new ideas from somebody that thinks like everybody else. So what I always like to bring to the table is speak honestly. As my motto became for 2017, it's die empty. You know, that's die empty of my ideas, my creativity, and with my emotions. The one thing I don't want to do is die with something still inside of me, and I'm looking down or wherever I descend into and I'm like, hey, I wish I would have did this.
Can I tell you how happy I am that you're saying that? Because, you know, this goes to the whole purpose of what I'm doing. I don't want people to die full. I want people to die, like you're saying, empty. I don't want someone to be looking back on their life and being like, I'm so glad I took that extra, I saved that extra 10 grand and did whatever with it. Instead, make sure that you're living a life of purpose. Now, the 10 grand can be awesome, but make sure you're living a life of purpose and that you fulfill your dreams and do what you're born to do here.
I would say the biggest change was speaking to one of my new mentors and potential investors. And when we was talking about my product, Timeline, and which is the microbrewery, and he actually said, he was like, you don't think you're doing too much? And I said, well, I'm not married yet. I don't have any children. And there's still 24 hours in a day. And he was like, okay, we'll see. So we come back in a couple of weeks. And we're talking about the product again. And I tell him, oh, we're going to add pizza to it now. So he says to me, he was like, that's interesting. You know, pizza is the hottest thing going right now. It's like it's one of the best industries to invest into. There's a resurgence of the amount of pizza people are buying. So he says, why pizza? So I tell him why pizza. I tell him how I'm going to do the pizza. I tell him the parents. So he starts asking me questions of, but what about this? So what about the design? You remember I own a design company. Well, what about the content for the marketing? I already bought cameras. We've been. So when he realized everything I do still goes back to the synergy of one focal point, he was like, oh, I get it now.
It's the same thing with me. I do websites, I do marketing, I do all of that because at the end of the day, I know that I can just get things done super, super fast and be really good at it.
But see, for me, it was that we started firing a lot of clients. If I don't have a certain kind of clientele, I just don't work with them no more.
Let me ask that. Okay, you know, I have a quote from you, quote, that you said, let me see, where was it? Well, I don't know if it was an exact quote, but you said something about that you want to target companies that will make you $1 billion with the least amount of work. So there's a difference between finding the people who love what you do or love your product and think that's a cool idea and the people who actually pay for it. How do you tell the difference as early as you can? Because they were talking, you know, a lot of my listeners are early, they're struggling, they're just getting off. How do you tell the difference as early on as possible?
There's two guys that I really look up to as designers. Both of them are named Michael, oddly enough. I think one is Michael Bright, or B-U-R-E-I-T. I'm reading his book now. The other guy's Michael lives in Hawaii. He owns Occupop. So the reason why I'm mentioning these two guys' names, both of them are these high-end designers that have made tremendous design work. Michael B, the one that I'm reading his book, he designed the logo for Miami's New World Symphony. The other Michael has worked with major clients, and he speaks every year at South by Southwest. And he has these shirts. One of the shirts says "fuck no," and the other shirt says "shit yeah." And so
I need one that says it on the front, and then I turn around and says it on the back.
So, and when I went to Michael's speaking engagement, when he works with his clients, he has this thing where after clients kind of get through what they want in their spiel, he normally asks them, well, why should I work for you? Why should I give my talents to you? And so that was one thing. Make sure people respect you for your craft. If they don't respect you for your craft, and it's like, well, I heard you were cheap, or I heard you were this, you got to make note, this is the image I'm giving people. So when I started people saying, you know, well, we heard you, you know, you turn around quick work. Okay, I don't have no problem with that. You know, we heard, you know, your cost was reasonable. I don't want to have a reasonable cost. You know, you don't go to a high-end restaurant and expect somebody to get the deal and be like, you know, we came here because we heard the cost was reasonable. You want them to say we heard the food was great. If the first thing somebody talks about is the fairness of our price, right, I'm already worried about them respecting the quality of our product.
That's true.
That was number one. Yeah. Number two, budgets. And maybe some of my recent clients that might hear this, if you can't call me with a budget, your next words need to be able to say, money isn't an issue. I can pay for anything. Unless money isn't an issue and you can pay for anything, you have a budget, sir. Even rich people have a budget.
Right, right.
No matter how much money a millionaire goes to buy a Porsche, he still knows how much money he wants to spend on that Porsche. Right. And normally the richest people will haggle you down to the last dime.
True, right?
So my thing is, you can't call me expecting me to work for you, but you don't have a budget in place. And even if you don't know the value of my services, where some people say, you know, I just don't know how much this costs. Well, you really don't know what it takes to do lung replacement. But if you had to go to the doctor with insurance, you're going to get a bill and it's going to come within a budget or out of a budget. Now, that's your life. So I'm not your life. You're not going to die if you don't work with me. Yeah. But come with a number. And people that don't come with a number, I'm more likely to just start ignoring them.
And for people who are wanting to buy service or procure services, or if you're giving services and someone comes at you with some sort of garbage like that, then you say to them, what is the cost of me not doing it right the first time? And if the cost of you not doing it right the first time is more than the cost of you doing it right the first time, then guess what? They need to pay you to do it right the first time. And that's worth money.
I mean, that's a polite way to say it. I wouldn't say that I dedicate that much time to it.
You and just say click.
That's just because of the amount of work and the amount of time that I've put into stuff where I work for clients for a fraction of what I should have charged them. Yeah. Hoping that when they made it to the next level, you know, that they would hire me back on and pay me what I'm worth. And so after going through that, and, you know, everybody's going to do that to some extent. Yeah. But some people, it was just blatantly disrespectful to the point that they would go through other people and still come back to us for our services. Because the one thing we've never had a client say is we didn't deliver. So it's just now when, you know, well, I don't know, that's cool. My thing is, there's 4 other companies that I own that the time that I lose haggling somebody over a price, if I put that same energy into remarketing, rebranding myself, developing my own content, it can bring in a new client that sees that and respects that. So I don't care no more.
So let me ask you this. So when sometimes people are nervous that, you know, they haven't built up enough of a portfolio of work or something like that. They need more work to show. So they might be willing to compromise on those costs.
But are you compromising on somebody that's big enough to bring you a bigger client? Or are you compromising on somebody that needs your help to get to where they're going?
That's very true.
Understand the compromise. You know? It's like one of those things, you know, do you bust tables to eat for free at McDonald's? If you can't afford that burger, you probably shouldn't be there in the first place.
That's true.
You know, so, but do you bust tables to eat for free at the Forge? Maybe. But what is it, you know, understand the value of what you're getting yourself into. Yeah. So if I meet Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan is like, look, man, just design the logo, man, just make the new box for me. Like, I can't really pay you right now. If things work out, you know what I'm saying? I'll shoot you $25,000. Now, knowing that's $150,000, $300,000 gig. Yeah. If Michael Jordan says that, you want that on your portfolio. Yeah. Now, your homeboy down the street is coming out with a mix CD. He's like, hey, man, you know, I know it might be, but, you know, just knock it out for me, man. If things pop off, I'll give it. You have to make that decision. Now, the thing is, I'm not telling you which one is right or wrong.
Right.
I got a homeboy now that's in the music industry, but I work with him because I told him a different direction to go. I told him, I was like, look, quit worrying about making hits. Learn how to score movies and TV shows and making background music for content. I can sell that faster than I can sell anything else. He listened. Now he's working on a deal with Sony and Columbia.
What?
I've told other people that before, and they ignored me. He's working on a $1.5 million deal right now. And so he said, you know, and I am talking to a hip hop producer. I am talking to somebody from back home. So the conversation is real and simple.
Yeah.
Yo, Mike, dog, as soon as I secure the bag, I'm coming down there, we celebrating, I'm going to bring the money to you in cash. Because it's the amount of money that as a check, it looks okay.
Yeah.
But bringing it to somebody in a cash bag, it looks totally different. And I respect what he's doing because he's showing me that he appreciates me to celebrate it with me.
That's so true.
You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
He could just transfer it, but he was like, no, I'm going to fly it to you.
Wow.
But that's because...
Make sure that plane don't go down.
But even if it did, you know what I'm saying? I would have did my just, but that's my boy. You know, that's been my boy ever since I was in high school. You know, that's the dude that on the way to school, I had to drive by his house and pick him up and take him to classes with me.
Right.
So that's a friend.
Yeah.
I don't do for strangers what I'm going to do for a friend.
Right, right.
I made that mistake before. I just don't do it no more.
Right, no,
so
you're
people
right.
will call and ask for stuff, and it's like, I just worked on a brand and a logo for somebody. Because I was reading that book by Michael, the design looks great. The design looks like something I would have did 4 years ago when I was really into designing. But I had to refresh my mind in a different way. It's simple, but it looks like something that would have been done by a high-end New York agency because I'm reading his book. So that's the visions I'm dreaming. That's the book I'm reading at night before I go to sleep. Yeah. So when she saw it, she was like, this is incredible. Yeah. She's like, how long did it take you? It took me 8 minutes to do her branding and her business card and everything. 8 minutes. But that 8 minutes has secured me to get my promotional shirts printed by her because that's the company she's working on. Wow. But you just got to know the value of what you do. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. Don't work for free, man. Yeah. Don't nobody really work for free.
Yeah, I did a whole topic on working for free, and it was interesting. I curated a lot of responses and people's thoughts on that and shared them with the audience, and people were all over the board. But I think that's the general lesson is you shouldn't work for free, but that your payment can come in a variety of forms. You just have to determine what that value is.
All right. So, yeah. I mean, you got to have a long-term vision. I mean, right now, Tech Beats and Bytes, we're pretty much doing that for free, but we're building content. So like when everybody was asking us, it's like, oh, so where is this really gonna go? You know, the bar sales aren't what you expected. I was like, did you actually know what I expected? Like, what do you mean? I was like, we had maybe 200 people, and we average now, 175 people. I was like, but the streaming content is getting 500 views. You think I'm selling a party. I'm selling content. Right. Because this party is one night. That content stays on the internet forever. Absolutely. And no matter what, I can package it up and take it to Netflix or take it to somebody and be like, this is a show concept I want to push out. Will you support it? So everybody that's thinking, if you think in one layer, we most likely aren't friends. I don't do one-dimensional thinking. I'm an artist in every sense of life. I'm an artist in just the way if you're not dreaming in color, you're not dreaming. It's just formalities. Amen, brother. It's just formalities.
Right. Well, hey, I can't thank you enough for sitting down to talk to me. Listen, this conversation went at least 2 or 3 different directions that I didn't anticipate, but I was so excited that we were there. So thank you so much. Cool. We really got to explore some cool stuff, and I'm a little disappointed that you didn't wear your black nerd shirt, but whatever.
They can't see me. That's why I'm about to. After this is the gym. Going to the gym.
All right, that's it. Do you want to share where people can get in touch with you, follow you, find your companies, like list out where people can get Michael Hall?
All right, for me personally, it's Michael Hall TM. That's everywhere, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So another thing, know how to brand yourself. So Michael Hall TM, so that's Michael Hall.
I just got it. It took me a second, so I was expecting maybe there are a couple extra names in your name that I didn't know about. Now I get it.
Trademark yourself.
See, here's the thing. I'll always get there. It just might take me a while.
And you know what? That's my thing. normally ahead of the curve, and sometimes you have to come back and just explain to people. Truthfully, most of the things I'm working on now are ideas that are about 3 or 4 years old.
Yes, me too. Well, 2 years old.
Now I've learned how to just sit on stuff and just wait for other things to catch up to make it make sense.
Right.
And then Medium 4 is MEDIUMFOUR, all platforms, Instagram through LinkedIn, and D.G.I.T, same thing, all platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Okay. And people go on there and look up their events too, because they're seem really amazing. I know I'm going to have to definitely come to.
And Digital Grass Innovation and Technology on YouTube is where all of our content is hosted right now. And you can also just go download our app. Digital Grass is on it's in the iTunes Store and Google Play.
Oh, I need an app so bad.
Yeah, so our
number
app is
2 on my big list right now. So
all of our content is on our app, so you can go view everything there.
Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you. And you have a podcast too.
Oh, the SoundCloud. That's so irregular. Only because it's really just exporting it. It'll be there.
It's called Two Techies, right?
Yeah, Two Techies is, so that content is up on YouTube. But yeah, the SoundCloud is more so reserved for my guys out on the West Coast and Midwest that I can't get to see as often. So I do pretty much the same show format, but I just do it as a podcast form. But Two Techies that started off as a podcast, quickly, the first 2 we did, it transitioned to an actual, we went and bought Sony cameras and we just upgraded to the point now that from Two Techies, we have about 5 or 6 companies that have reached out to us to do content development from the way that was shot and edited.
Fantastic. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Michael.
Thank you.
Welcome to the learning curve.
All right, guys, let's jump right into this here. So a major mental roadblock that Michael Hall and I discussed is the realization that you are not the first to market. Uh-oh. You know that great idea you had? It is sure to be an industry game changer, set you up as a millionaire, and make you famous. Only problem is that it already exists. Someone's beaten you to it. Ruh-roh. Time to walk away, right? Hold on. Not so fast. Getting over the roadblock of not being first to market requires a disrupt and tweak mindset. As Michael said, sometimes when you tap into something, you don't have to own the whole thing. But if you disrupt something enough to take your piece, you can live a happy life. I've shelved many ideas, too many to even think of them all, simply because I heard someone else had already done it. So, how do you manifest the disrupt and tweak mindset? Here are some tips, using Uber as a way too easy example. Number 1, think about what the competition, the person who's already out there, what they're doing wrong. All right, who listening remembers either calling up a random taxi company or standing in the street with your arm raised for a ride? I don't know why I ask questions like that, because I totally can't see. No one answering me, but whatever. Okay, I remember the process of calling a taxi, and I remember it being such a to-do. You know, first there is figuring out a taxi cab to call in the first place. Then there's waiting for the ride to arrive, which you have no idea how long you're really going to be waiting for. Not convenient at all. I know that, you know, the rides are always so costly. You always have to factor that price into your overall budget for the day. You try to squeeze as many people as you can into the taxi like it's a flippin' clown car just to save the extra fare. It's a mess. So while the availability of taxis has made them a valuable option for decades, there were shortcomings in terms of convenience and cost, and Uber recognized them. That is the first step. Number 2, what can you offer that is better? I mean, there are no two ways about it. Services like Uber and Lyft are killing the taxi industry right now. And that is because they figured out how to cure the taxi thorns in many people's sides, the aforementioned monsters of convenience and cost. By embedding the ability for users to watch their ride approach them, Uber saves customers significant time, inconvenience, and stress. Also, their rides are far cheaper than your traditional taxi service. I don't know how they do it, but they do. Number 3, get creative with all the new tech that's developed since whenever that first person went into the industry, a lot of things change, right? Ask yourself what technologies have sprung up since that last person did this idea that you can now use to make the product or service even better. Did apps exist when this type of idea was first started? If not, as in the case of taxis, how can introducing an app change the opportunity? Or what social media services are trending that can create a new spin? Can the advent of shared workspaces change the service you're offering? How? Think outside the box, guys. In the case of Uber, now anybody who can pass a background check, of course, can become a driver and make extra money on the side. That means that Uber, they not only solved issues for customers, but they also created new opportunities for drivers and extra money in their pocket, right? I know any taxi drivers hearing this right now might be fuming. I apologize. Please send your complaints to jemmy'sanidiot@curvethecube.com. Actually, I should really make that a real email address. They probably get some pretty funny and self-deprecating fodder stuff in there. But anyways, now full disclosure. I've never used Uber or Lyft myself, so I don't actually know how they differ, like specific areas of difference between the two, what one's better at that another's not. But actually, I don't even know which one came into market first, but whichever came to the market second certainly didn't let their time slot into entry hold them back and let them be intimidated, not by, taxis, but by the other service. So I think Lyft may have been second. They didn't let themselves be held off by Uber. I mean, both companies are hugely successful. So what a missed opportunity that would have been if the second to market hadn't gone in because they saw the other one doing the same thing. But whichever came second certainly has happily taken their piece of the ride services pie, don't you think? So don't give up on your idea just yet. What can you do to disrupt and tweak? I also want to quickly mention, and I'll probably dive into it more on another episode and another learning curve, but I also want to mention industry incubators and accelerators. Michael Hall talked about that a lot, so I encourage everybody to just do a quick Google search for incubators and accelerators, see what might be in your area and in your industry that can help boost what you're doing and get you started in the right direction. So the next major topic I want to go into with today's learning curve is that fantastic idea for Michael Hall of dying empty. When talking to Michael, he hit on a visualization I've had in my head for a very long time. The image of someone on their deathbed, and I don't want this to be me, I don't want this to be anybody, but someone on their deathbed thinking back on their life with regret. Yes, they played it safe. Yes, they had some money to die comfortably and with the peace of mind that their loved ones wouldn't be financially saddled. But what that person is thinking about is all they missed out on. Corners of the world they will never see. Old friendships they let fade. And that one big passion they never went for. That, to me, is the saddest part of the image. But then when I think about it, that image flashes into another. One where the pages of all that person's life dreams weren't left unwritten, but fulfilled. They traveled, they took chances, they succeeded, and yes, they failed. A lot. But they never had to ask, what if? And the dying person is instead smiling, because they left all their passion on the table. They died empty. Which one do you want to be? I know I want to die as empty as I can. For me and most curvists, dreamers, and doers, we have to pursue what we love in order to not leave this world with regret. I know I can't rest until my podcasts are successful, until my marketing clients are happy and telling others about me, until my ideas are at least fleshed out, if not yet acted upon. I simply cannot rest because I simply cannot regret. The only way I have found to do that is to step into life every day, full of confidence and without fear. Or at least, fake the courage and don't let lack of confidence and presence of fear hold me back. I mean, let's be real. But I follow my gut and what feels right, both in business strategy, also in podcast creation, and also in the people who I meet that I let into my own inner personal professional circle. And at the end of the day, I forgive myself for mistakes and I move forward. I constantly goal set, act, rinse, and repeat. Working hard doesn't scare me. Dying full of regret does. And that's today's learning curve. Thanks for listening to episode number 115 of the Curve the Cube podcast with Michael Hall, where dreamers become doers. Please join the conversation on Facebook. Go to dreamersbecomedoers.com and click to link to the Facebook group by the same name. Let's get the conversation started with tips and support. Please also follow Curve the Cube all over social media. And if you are in South Florida and interested in starting your own podcast, go to palmbeachpodcasters.com. This is your host, Jemmy of Flintstone Media, signing off.
You have successfully curved the cube.
Curve the Cube podcast is where dreamers become doers. Through this passion project of mine, your host, Jemmy Lagagne, moi, will inspire you to pursue your own dreams by taking you on an intimate tour of my own journey crafting a dream career. I provide powerful takeaways and action items for you to put into play in changing your own life. Along the way, I talk to other curvists who are doing the same to demystify the process that you too can follow. From actors to artists, musicians to business owners, underwater photographers to crafty creators, and everything in between, Curve the Cube will inspire you to pursue your own dreams and passions. Find your passion, do your thing with the Curve the Cube podcast. Enjoy!